Hello everyone and welcome back. We're going to be doing a large painting today and it's going to be on Neist Point, that wonderful lighthouse and cliffs on the Isle of Skye, the furthest western point of the Isle of Skye in fact. It was such an amazing place that we thought we'd give it a big painting. It was really worth a big painting in that. I haven't seen a place so spectacular in Britain yet, so it was a real treat to go there. The size of the painting we're going to do is full imperial, which is 30 by 22 inches, so a good size. And they're quite tricky paintings really, because there's so much to go wrong. There's such a big space that there's a lot to happen on there. We didn't do the painting there because of pretty obvious reasons really. If you have a look at that video, you'll see why. But we're going to tackle it instead in the studio, which is a challenge in itself. In some ways easier, but in some ways more difficult as well. If you like the video, please remember to subscribe or hopefully like it. Liking is good because it gets the channel noticed a bit more and gets it a bit popular. So that would be very helpful if you could do that. Anyway, hope you enjoy the video and enjoy the instruction and the demonstration. Here's the piece of paper, and it's an impressive sight, painting so big. It's always interesting and slightly worrying to paint big, but there's a very enjoyable part of it too. As you can see, I've done the drawing, and I've pressed a bit harder this time so that you can see it. Nothing wrong in having the lines visible. There's no problem there really. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to start at the sky. So I'm having a little bit of a different approach, which carries on from my bridge painting, where I'm going to work on the sky for a bit rather than cover everything. So I want to introduce some clouds into it, so we'll see how it goes. So here we go, here's my palette, and now it's just a question of working out colours. I'm going to try and make it a bit of an interesting sky, so not the same colours throughout. I'm going to try and change that a bit. So cobalt blue, it's here. I've got to mix quite a lot up of this because it's quite a large area, so keep on going. A bit more cobalt blue, so I'll leave that in that compartment there. Now I'm going to get a little bit of green, Veridian green in it, just to try and give it a little bit of change of colour. There's a little Veridian, and now a little bit of ultramarine blue. Make sure you mix it up enough as well, you don't want a big blob. I'm not mixing colours here so much, I'm just mixing the base colours, so you can mix them up as much as you like. It's when you come into the actual colour mixing, that's when you've got to be a bit more cautious with mixing. Right, I always take a deep breath when I'm just about to do something a bit tricky. So here we go, just a bit more blue in there. Right, take one look at the picture that I'm going to do, mop up the bit that I've splashed everywhere, and here we go. So going to start in the top left hand corner. So a little bit darker in that side, I think. Here we go. So I've got ultramarine blue here and a little bit of burnt umber. I'll change the colour again to make just more of a pure ultramarine blue here. I'm going to try and leave some clouds. I'm going to go to cobalt blue. So trying to get the edge of the cloud coming in. It's a very aggressive style, this beginning part of a painting, especially in clouds. Clouds you've got to have a lot of courage to do because it's so much. And I'm going to go more into Veridian this side. Just to change it, how about a bit of cerulean blue? Going all the way across. Okay, a bit more Veridian. How about that? So you can see it's changed colour a little bit. Just for fun, really. Now I'm going to work into the actual cloud. So a little bit of raw umber. And just put it in there a bit. So I'm trying to imagine the clouds have a little bit of a peak to them. Sort of white lining. Every cloud has a silver lining, after all. carry on working across. So they've gone a bit green, that colour. So I'll start again with a fresh mix. Over to here. Okay. And now I'm going to make it a little bit more dramatic. And I'm splattering everything at the moment on the bottom right. Maybe I'll move my water back. There we go. Now I'm going to try and get a bit of darker cloud in now. So ultramarine blue and burnt umber, just to create that sort of dramatic underside of the clouds. The brush I'm using here is my Winsor and Newton mop, which I like. I got it a few months ago and I thought I might not like it. I might prefer my normal mop, but no, I do prefer it. Okay. See, it's such a lot of space. Carry on. Now the other side. And then back to the Veridian and the lighter shades underneath. I always like a sky turning back into Veridian, a little bit green at the bottom of it. It's quite a long reach to that top corner. Trying not to get my head in the way of the camera, so normally I'd be much more over the painting. I'll go into the sea now, just to, as I've got the blue out really, and I'll come back to the sky in a minute. And it's an interesting colour scheme, colour sea. There's a lot of green in there. It's quite pretty. So let's give that a go. All the way. It was a beautiful sea and colour that day. I remember I did one photograph which, or I saw one scene which I was going to video, and we said, oh, we'll do it on the way back, but it was never the same. But the colour of the sea was incredible. More of an emerald colour. Okay. Trying to create a few marks. I've got to stretch across the camera a bit because it's such a long way away on this big sheet of paper. So I'm imagining there's a few waves in the water, so just leaving a few bits of white paper, which is a nice technique. Sea is going to be one of the best points on this. Look at the colour of that. I don't know how the camera picks it up, but from my perspective, it's an amazing colour. Beautiful. Come over to the left, right, sorry, and have this wonderful sea coming into this part. And Veridian. I'll go into the shadows of the water as well. Watercolour is such an amazing medium. It's so immediate and you get such incredible effects so quickly, and that's one of the reasons I like it so much. Although I do love oil painting as well. I've actually haven't done much watercolour painting recently because I've been doing oil painting. It's a wonderful foil, and it's in some ways it's a relief. One is a relief for the other. Okay, there's that side. And now let's work on the other side before it dries. So ultramarine blue and Veridian. It's a nice range. It was such a wild day. There were a few waves in the sea, crests of waves, whiteness. But Nice Point, it was, when Tanya and I got back to the camper van, we looked at each other and thought, wow, that was such an amazing experience. Both of us independently were blown away by it in more ways than one. Okay, almost got that. Getting down into there. Right. So that was a very effective first coat, and I'm quite pleased with that. But I want to go further in the sky. I could leave it like that, and it wouldn't be bad. But I find a single wash in the sky sometimes a little bit unsatisfying. So it doesn't really make it dramatic enough. So I'm going to take a risk on this one because I could easily leave it like that, and I'm going to introduce a bit of drama in the sky here. So a nice darker cloud coming in. So ultramarine blue and a little bit of black coming in here. So, and maybe a little bit of brown as well. So something like that, but it might go well, it might not go well. So we'll see. There's a lot of risk taking in watercolor painting. So this is a risk. Okay. Try and get some sort of effect going. Just want to make it seem like it's a bit more what it was, which was quite almost violent. It's very easy to become complacent in watercolor and lose courage. So I don't want to do that. I want to be courageous. It'll be easier not to do it. Fade it out a bit at the side. Clouds there. Maybe soften it a little bit at the bottom. So soften that there. Let it run in. Yeah, maybe something like that. Maybe get more Veridian. So maybe, yes, tricky. The colours merge into each other. So I've got this side done, and now maybe a little bit more to the other side, just to give a little bit more drama. Maybe carry it in from up here, so stretching across the camera. Stretch it and bring this area down. So I say it would have been much easier not to have gone to this second step. It would have been much easier just to say, oh, maybe not, but I'd do it anyway. Maybe a bit of brown. Getting that colour in. Right. Okay, I haven't finished quite yet. Maybe there's something going into this area. And then here. Sometimes you can make a bit of a mess up of these things if you go too far with watercolor. And watercolor is a medium where it doesn't really like being pushed around much, and I feel I am pushing it around at the moment. So I don't want to do it too much, but sometimes it just needs it. See that? I like that. That was good. That gave a sense of drama coming in here. Yeah, that was good. Maybe do that again to the next bit. So you see, I'm just working on this real part at the moment. I'm not trying to work all over the picture, but this is big enough for me at the moment. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor in watercolor. Yeah, I like that. Whew, beginning to sweat. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? How you bring these things into the clouds. Always trying to dramatize a picture. How can I make it look a little bit more dramatic? I like that. Now, bring Veridian on this side. Some Veridian coming through. Yeah, that seemed to work. And a bit more Veridian at the top here. So it's changed colour a bit from left to right. And now I I think maybe a little bit of Veridian at the bottom of the picture, so it has a little bit of distinction from the sea. Okay, so let's make something in here. So we can make something work. Right over here like that too. There we go. And there's the sky pretty much done. I don't think I can really do any more than that. Maybe if I soften bits and pieces like there. Create softened effects. There. I can't do any more to it than that. As I say, watercolour doesn't like being pushed around, and I think I've pushed it around as much as I can do. You can overpaint watercolour endlessly, but what I'm looking for is a fresh approach, something free and lively. You can do watercolour endlessly, but you'll lead into a more realistic photorealism idea, which isn't what I'm about. Right, so what I'm going to focus on now is the little island, or the land really, on the top left here over here. So far distant. So there's a bluing effect with distance, which is really fun. And so this is us going in here, trying to not overmix the colours, trying to keep it simple. And just doing my best to be as free as I can. Quite nice, I think. It comes out, it's a bit of land here, so I'm stretching across at the moment. It's nice. All right. A bit too wet to try that. One of the things about when I paint in front of the camera, I don't necessarily paint as if when I'm just on my own. Because I feel like I can wait a bit more when I'm on my own. But when I'm in the studio, I seem a bit more under pressure to try and get things done. See, I wouldn't have done that if I'm by myself. Okay, maybe I'll come back to that later on. Right, so I'm going to work now into the sea, and I'm going to change the colours from ultramarine to a bit of cobalt blue. So I get them in there. Trying to remember to get this. So I'm mixing that up very carefully. You don't want those big lumps. So I'm not mixing two colours yet. Right, and a little bit of Veridian. Maybe put that there. Veridian's a wonderful colour. And one of the great things about Veridian as well is that it's incredibly permanent. And to me, I think it's really important to use as permanent colour as you can for the people who buy it, really. You don't want the colours fading on them. So that's one of the great things about Veridian. It's an incredibly permanent colour. I'm trying to imagine, the sea's here, but I'm trying to imagine that there's the light coming and reflecting off the sea here. So I've got this line of the cloud which sort of says that's where the sea starts. I don't want to go into that too much because I want to give the impression that there's light in the distance. I don't know whether you can see it, whether that's worked. Okay, it's a problem. Okay, if I was by myself, I would be a bit more careful. Right, going down into the rest of the water now. I'm quite pleased with that. That was the wrong green. That was Hooker's green I'd just taken out. So I go back to Veridian. Such a lovely emerald colour. And maybe go back to ultramarine blue as well. So there's my palette there. So now back into the sea. Carry on. It sort of gets a little bit darker. The closer you get towards the land, the sea seems to get darker. Mainly because the light was reflecting into the sea, so it was sort of dazzling you a bit. The effects of watercolour are stunning. Watercolour is an incredibly underrated medium. I think the popularity of oil paints have taken over from watercolour, but in the Victorian era, watercolour was incredibly popular because everyone realised how difficult it was. and the immediate effects that you can have with it are so satisfying. We're going to move over to the right-hand section of the water now, and Tanya's hand-holding the camera now, so she's being a bit brave. Usually we rely on the tripods for this, so let me know what you think, whether she was good enough at holding it stable. I'm sure she's good. So just going to darken some of these and trying to match the same sort of colour as the other side, which is a little bit greenier here. Maybe I'll increase that horizon, that's all right. And then into the rest of it, you can see my palette here. So trying to introduce a few waves into it. Oh, that wasn't so good. But trying to let the colours, and maybe it's going diagonally a bit. We've got the big shadow of the rocks coming in, which are really pretty. This part here, but I'll carry on with the sea first. It curves in, and the shadow starts to here. Maybe a bit premature on that. I think it was premature. I might leave that a bit. Come back to that in a minute. So I'm just going to carry on with some of the shadows now. Let's see, my computer's over to my left. So making reference to those. There's a lovely shadow coming across of the from the big hills. The paper that I'm using for all you paper enthusiasts is Fabriano Artistico, and this is the natural white paper, so it's not the high white. I like white paper, but sometimes I think it's a little bit too much. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on the cliffs, and this is the central theme of the painting now, and I think now's the time to start tackling this, and I'm going to work on the greenery first, the green grass, which is quite a lot of. No trees on this place. The wind was phenomenal, so I didn't see any trees around here. Right, so now work out the colours. So I'll keep it on the ultramarine blue, a bit of yellow, cadmium yellow. You see that? So trying to not over mix things, and trying to get a lot of. If you overmix things, you've just got one choice of colour, but there I have quite a few choices of colour. I like that. So I'm trying to have choice. Okay, all right, let's work at the top. A little bit too light, too dark. And I might add some burnt umber to it as well. It wasn't a pure green. And it wasn't that either. I don't want a multicolored rainbow effect. Okay, that's all right. So now working to the rest of it. So I'm going to brown it off a bit just to get that sort of feeling of off-white, and off-green. Still using my mop. I think it's the only brush I've used so far. Shows how much I like it. A bit browner as well. It was winter, after all. Well, when I say winter, it felt like winter, it was actually spring. I quite like that song, Four Seasons in One Day. I think it's Crowded House, and it really felt like that. Only 4 seasons in 1 hour. Yeah, just to see how I've changed the colour. So I've gone from quite a green, almost too green, to a sort of browner colour, which I quite like. Sort of muted it a bit. So still carrying on into the cliffs and going to the grass more. So we're going to head off into the far distant grass, which is here, where the lighthouse started. Referring always to the photographs, and the sketch is over now. I don't use the sketch now because I've got the drawing done. The sketch is really just for the drawing. And now my reference material, i.e. my photographs, are here. In the old days, before digital photography, they would have done copious amount of notes on colour. What colour was here, what colour was there. But I feel now with digital photography, it's so convenient that, and it contains so many colours that you don't really have to rely on that anymore. Just trying to work in, just trying to get the values in now, working everywhere. Lots of variety in that grass. Depth. Get some blue. Change the colour here a bit. Sort of cliffs over there. Ultramarine blue and burnt umber. That gives you a sort of black, which is what I'm trying to look for here. It goes into here. We bought a new handle for the camera, so that's why Town is giving it a go, hand holding it, and I think it's quite effective. Let me know in the comments whether it was effective. Hopefully it doesn't move around too much. Okay, the next part is there's a crevasse that runs away down here. Black. Just trying to get as much colour, much depth into that as I can. So mixing this black is quite interesting. So there's the black and there's the blue. So quite a dark. A little bit wet still to work on, but as I say, working with a camera, videoing does just change things a bit. I'll be a bit more patient, but not at the moment. Right, going to work into the bottom left of the picture now. Doing more with the grass coming in. So it's looking quite brown, that grass. So it might have been a bit greener than that. So, but it'll come and go with that. That's the rocks at the bottom left, which I think are a really important part of this painting. Keep working that through. Trying to get that variety of colour. I'll put the pathway on with a bit of gouache later on. That's white paint. I don't know whether everyone knows the differences between gouache and watercolour, but gouache is an opaque medium, really, almost like poster paints, whereas watercolour is much more of a transparent medium. So with gouache, you can carry on painting over and over and over, almost like acrylic or oil. I haven't done too much gouache painting, really. It is a wonderful medium, but I just haven't done much of it. And some people don't like gouache, but in the hands of an amazing artist, I think it's a fantastic medium. And I've seen some great examples of gouache. So now I'm going to work into the cliffs, the drama of the cliffs. So Oh, it's going to be a browner, bluer colour because I've got this blue shadow and I want it to contrast with the blue shadow, so I don't want to make them the same. So trying to give them that difference. Yep, bit browner. It's a blue, but it's a brown as well. So again, mixing the paints carefully, well, not too carefully. Some white froth at the bottom on the waves coming in. It's an interesting landscape, this, because there's not much detail on it. It's a very open landscape. Some browns. Do it browner when it makes it. See, I'm going to do it browner as it hits the water, really, because I want it to contrast against that blue. If they're both the same, I wouldn't get that contrast. So I think it's important to give it a browner shadow. And an idea like that just comes from experience, really. I'm not painting what it really was at all. These colours are my colours that I think are right. And you must never be afraid to do what you think is right. So trust your instincts. Bluer shadow here. There's quite a lot of rocks on the edge here. Get that contrast away from the sea. Getting back to the grass now again, and just trying to get a few more of the tones in, the variation in that there is. Trying to correct these, so there you go, that's corrected. So still my one brush, all of it one brush, my Winsor and Newton mop. And then I'll make it a little bit greener at the bottom part, just to contrast that slightly off brown colour. And then finally, on the actual island. On the island, the lighthouse. There. Right, so I'm going to work into the little bit of the detail of the cliff. So sort of cliffs jaggeding out all over the shop. So I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to go for a bluer wash now, because I've got the browner wash on the base. So, well, it's almost black in fact. So it's ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Right, let's work on that. So trying to the sort of difficult to describe it, the sort of ridges coming out of it. Just trying to get the shapes. It's a value study. I'm not trying to put detail in, really. That's not what it's about. So maybe the light. See, that's sort of given a bit of detail. My technique is impressionistic, so I'm not after every dot and comma of detail. That is not. I like excitement in my watercolour painting, and to me this is exciting, to try and get the effects. I love the phrase, to get the maximum with the minimum. Maximum benefit with minimum effort. Yeah. And then yeah. I think that worked out nicely. I don't know whether you can see that. It's sort of given a sense of there's something there now rather than just a plain wash. And there's a big cliff here. And then here. Fabriano Artistico is a very nice paper. I do like it. It's very good for big washes. The paint flows very easily on it. But it's horses for courses, really. I'm not saying it's the best paper in the world, but for certain things it's a good paper. But certain things it's not a very good paper. And I've just bought a different paper recently I'm going to try out, and that's the Winsor and Newton professional art paper. So I'm trying that out. I'm quite excited to use it, in fact. So you're going to be seeing a few paintings of that paper, and unbelievably different paintings it's going to do. You're going to see a big change in what it does. I find that quite interesting. Variety is quite fun too. Changing things is, I think, when you change things up, it makes you realise certain things. You see that? So that's the jaggedy cliffs coming up. Quite light. Try and work it out. It's amazing how the cliffs just sort of fall into the sea. So just going to darken some of the rocks in this cliff area as well. Give that sense of the cliffs sort of coming up. The cliffs here. I'm sure, well, hopefully one day some of you will go to East Point and think about this painting. Just a few details, really. So here's a little mistake I've made here with the White House, with the actual lighthouse. I've painted with too much space around there. So I should have just painted the sea right the way across and then a bit of gouache at the end to indicate the White House, but I didn't do it. So I'm going to have to rectify that. So maybe that I'd rather not happen. So maybe just build up the white inside it a bit. Now I'm going to go back into the shadow now. That's dried enough now to work that out. And I'm using my number 14 Raphael brush on this to get this very contrasty shadow. Ultramarine blue, quite a lot of that, and a bit of brown, but this is a blue toned dark. And in she goes. Maybe it's complete blue now here. Let's make it darker. Yeah, there are amazing shadows that day. The light really came out for us. Briefly. One of the interesting parts of the videos that we've been doing on Sky, and what I hope I got over with it as well, is the idea of what it is to be a landscape painter. And it is about adventure, and you've really got to go and you've got to travel. You've got to go and find these places and do a sketch or whatever you're going to do, but the travel is such an important part of it. Let's go green. So a little bit of Veridian here, just trying to get this sharp shadow coming across. My next stage now is to do the very foreground, and there was rocks and grass and all sorts of things there, but there's sort of lighter rocks at the edge of the cliff, and which I really loved. At the time, I always think of Ansel Adams with his rocks, and maybe that's one of the reasons I like rocks so much. They have that solidity there. So a little bit of ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Surprisingly, those two colours. Right. So it's quite light wash, really. So see, that's too blue. So you're just trying to get the right shades. Maybe a bit lighter than that. I'm just trying to get the basic tone of them down initially. So the sort of the mid-tone, and I'll come back to them. So I'm going to do a bit of a blue colour. Another rock in here. Come over here. And now these two wonderful rocks here, which I think are going to be the scene stealer of the whole painting. Love these two rocks. So let's try and get that. Trying to get different colours in. There's a dark, so I'm trying to leave the highlight of it so that it contrasts with the grass. That's really important. Yeah. Dark around the side. That's the first basic part of the rock. And the second rock comes in. Hope the handheld's going well. It's going to be interesting to hear your comments to see whether you thought the handheld was okay. But the benefits of the handheld is that you can sort of move around the picture a bit more and show little details in a different way from the tripod. When the camera's on a tripod, it's very static and it can't move in quite the same way. So you've always got to experiment. Videography and watercolour are quite similar in a way. It's all about experimentation, which Tan is very good at.
Thank you, darling.
So I'm trying to keep them light, the rocks, because I want them to be a feature of the painting. I don't want them to disappear. So I'm going to paint them probably slightly lighter than they really are. And that's really interesting as well, because artistic choices are so important in painting. Your aesthetics, your aesthetic judgment, one of the most underrated subjects in watercolour painting and painting in general, what you think is right. So my next step is to do the green grass that's all along this section here. So this isn't quite dry, and I would normally let it dry, but I haven't got the time today. Right, so just get that grass coming in. Not that green yet. That's fine though. I like variety. Maybe a bit of cerulean blue as well. The frame on this picture is an interesting thing, and I did a video on it, and I got the inspiration from an artist called Edward Wesson, and he used this. He's the one who introduced me to this idea, really, and I've never looked back since. I've always thought it's a great idea. It basically sandwiches the two bits, the paper between two bits of board, keeps it really steady. And I've got a video on that, if you want to go and look at that. As is all my equipment. You can watch those videos too. Right. So I'm dashing along all the way along the bottom here. All the way there, and that would be that section sort of done for the moment. There. Okay, now heading back to there's a sort of muddy patch around here. It's quite fun. Okay, now move on to the next one while that's drying. And trying to get the shape of it. Give them a habit of cobalt blue. I've been using that for a while. Yeah, that's nice. Pure cobalt blue here. I like that. Here as well. You're just moving along to the next set of rocks. Just trying, they're value studies really, they're nothing more than that. It's got a light side and it's got a mid-tone and it's got a dark side, so that's all they are. What I love about painting really is a lot of it is or the majority of it really is about values. And I have a particular likeness for Sargent's work, and he was a master at picking values and halftones, so all those very subtle colours he could pick out, and because he could pick that out, those colours out, everything looked real to him. Everything that he painted just turned to gold. Sargent did very few bad paintings. So I'm just giving it a sense of, not trying to paint everything, just trying to give it a sense that there's a shape. Sort of making it up really as well. There's a little bit of looking, but I'm sort of making the shapes up. All the way down into there. Now maybe we get a darker shade, a darker value, just to introduce the bottom of the rocks. Normally about 3 values is enough. So light, mid-tone and a dark. And then these are the important ones. Okay, nice dark patch there. And then really dark into the corner here. Now we're going to go into the tufts of grass now. Almost done. We're not, so we're just going to try and get a feeling of tufts of grass coming out. And I think cerulean blue is a nice colour for that, quite soft. Sense that there's something there as well, even if I don't really depict it with much. And the last bit of green coming in. That corner is very plain without it. I don't want to put too much on there because I'm thinking ahead, and that's probably where I'm going to sign it. So I want to see enough so that my signature can come out. Now a little bit of cerulean blue. I really like the way that came out. Beautiful stuff, cerulean blue. I don't use it enough. I really get a feeling that the painting's reaching its peak now, and I've definitely broken the back of it. So it's just adding a few hints and things going on there. So I think that I need to show that there are some waves coming in really. So it's back to my ultramarine blue and Veridian, 2 wonderful colours for the sea. And I'm going to do a few waves coming in. So just try and pick too dark, just to give it a sense that there's something, there's a bit of action going on. And I feel that with landscapes, it's a bit like making a movie, and you've got to have action somewhere in the scene to try and create that drama. After a while, look at a picture if it has no drama. It feels like there are a few waves coming in, so I like that. Hopefully you do too. back to the hills or mountains in the distance, really, just to rectify that a little bit. It was a bit done in haste, I felt, so I just need to make it a little bit more sort of believable. So just creating a few shapes here just to bring it back make it into reality. Sharpen it up a bit. Yeah. And then there's one rock, dark rock coming in here. Okay. Just noticed a few rocks that I haven't put in, and I think they'd be a nice feature. I think they're coming in here. They're in the sea, so let's put those in. I thought they're really fun. So when you finished a painting to a certain distance, I actually noticed that sort of thing. So they were sort of scattered here. A few rocks. That's nice. When you get to the end of a painting, that's when you start to see things and mistakes that have been made. Maybe get a bit more nervous too. Some people anyway. Because like golf, right? If you do a good round of golf, the further in the round I've done a good round, and then it all falls apart. So I think watercolour painting can be a little bit like that. Okay, a few rocks there, and a few rocks in the distance as well. And then we're going to come onto the white paint, which is a sort of favourite of mine actually. I like it. And then. Just a few rocks at the bottom. Well, I wonder whether I should do that. Try and show these more cliff-like parts at the bottom of the picture. Don't want to overdo that. I think that might be a bit of a mistake, doing too much of that. I think it is. So I just dab it off with my thumb a bit, just to soften it down. Yes, that's better. A rock here. So I'm going to be doing the little detail now, the only bit of detail I'm going to do in this painting, and that's of the lighthouse, just to try and indicate things really. I don't want to go into too much because that's not me. Keep it all in context. So I'm just trying to there's a little wall coming out, a few windows, hinting at it really. I just don't like putting too much detail in a painting that is impressionistic. I could paint with detail, but I choose not to. So a few windows. That's good. And then at the top, it's quite a dark piece, like the canopy. Right here. And then at the end we'll introduce some white paint. Yeah, so that'll do for the moment, maybe not. I noticed at the time there were some chimneys and double glazing there, so I think people do live there. I haven't looked it up yet, but I've got a feeling somebody lives there. Or from time to time anyway, there's got some chimneys there. It was quite big as well, it wasn't a tiny structure. Okay, that's good. Now head into a bit of white paint. So I bought a couple of new brushes. These are from Cass Art. So sort of some nice, sort of smaller brushes. I thought I had a little bit of a gap between small and medium, so got these. So just to get the few reflections in. A few dots really. It's amazing what you can do with just a few hints of dots and things. Does it need any more than that? I don't think so. That's all I'm going to give it. So the few bits of white paint now, and there's the white paint there. As I say, always squeeze it out right at the very end. And it's for these where the waves are crashing into the sea really, but it's not white. It is a blue colour, so I'm not going to paint it white. So I'm mixing up a few colours there and just dabbing it around a bit, especially at the base of the cliffs. Just a few dabs. To give it the sense of the crashing waves. So there's more than one colour that I'm going to put on. So this is a sort of mid-tone blue. And then down here there's some sense of crashing. So the next part of the white paint is the pathway, which is an intrinsic part of it really, and it sort of winds its way up here, and it changes colour a great deal. So I think there are some puddles in there, and it sort of captures the light reflecting. See how it changed colour there? Quite like that. And it goes off into the distance. Into the distance and gone. Yeah, so pretty much like that. Not exact, but no, I don't have to be exact. So that was nice. Right, so that's a few of the little marks in, and the light, the pylons, and the waves, and things like that. Just the little details that mean so much. And I'm looking around at it now, and part of the skill of a painter is to work out when you've done enough. And I feel I've reached the stage where I've done enough. And I ask myself a question: if I did more, will I make it a better painting? And my answer is no, it's not going to be a better painting if I did more. I'm particularly pleased with parts of it, but the lighthouse in particular I thought was nice, in that there wasn't any detail to it. It is the lighthouse, but there's not much there, and I really love that. And my favourite part of all of it is this bit here, where there was a very sharp line of the sea, a very contrasting line, and I didn't paint it that way. The sea sort of flowed into the baseline of the clouds, and it sort of disappeared, and I loved that part of it. That part of it was its biggest success. So I'm really pleased with that, and the white paint helped anyway. And the very last, most satisfying thing to do is to sign the picture. Sometimes it can be a bit pressurized, so here we go. James Potter. There we go. Great, so that's the painting all done, and it's always a relief to finish a big painting. You never quite know how it's going to go to begin with, and you just can't see into the future when it's going to go well. And I really like this painting. I think it's turned out quite nicely. A few parts of it which I really like. I didn't do any pencil work on this one at all. I thought it was full enough as it was. I didn't need that, so I left it as it was. Next week, or next Thursday, we've got the last part of our sky journey. I think I might have said that this week was the last part, but no, there's one more part of it where we go down to Broadford again and then finish off at the Carl of La Kelch on quite a memorable trip for us. Lots happening, lots of weather, quite a lot of memories coming from it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that and got something from it, and maybe learned a few tricks here and there. Particularly in painting a big picture, you just got to hang in there really, and keep plodding on. And sometimes it can be a little bit sort of depressing at times when you make a mistake, but you just got to keep on hanging in there really. Anyway, if you could like it, that'd be great, and possibly subscribe. I've almost reached 10,000 subscribers now, so only a few more to go, and I've reached 10,000, which is quite a milestone for YouTube, and so I'm quite excited about that. So just pass my account onto, or my channel onto as many people as you know. That would be great. And anyway, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.